Hi Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Claire, and yourself?
Really well. It's really great to see you again. Thanks for taking the time to have another chat with me. But we were going to talk through one of the tools that we use in Keller Williams. Obviously, there's a lot of systems and tools available to us, and we're going to talk through a growth plan today.
Oh, absolutely. And so we've been working together on how could we display coaching? How could people experience coaching? And
Mhm.
obviously, what's strange about presenting a tool is that the truth of the matter in coaching is that it's much more of a coach asking questions to assure that the client can self-discover and begin thinking about what they desire to move towards their goals. And then if we were going to use a tool or teach a tool, or we were going to use a resource, that would probably be triggered by the client communicating what particular they wanted, or what they were moving towards, or what they desired to accomplish, or very often what they were limited by or what they were blocked by. And so we use models, systems, tools, and coaching to do that. We thought we would do is we would teach something or present something a little different than coaching, yet this can come up in coaching, that anybody can use. So if you grab a piece of paper and you just write out the months of the year, right? If everybody just writes out the months of the year on a piece of paper, and you give yourself about 3 or 4 lines under each month. So January, February, March, April, May, and so on. And you give yourself a couple of lines under each month. And on the top of the page, you just write growth plan. Because what we're going to talk about today is building your growth plan.
Yeah.
We know that our business and our lives grow to the extent that we grow, right? And our growth is dependent upon the people that we meet, the education that we get, the courses that we take, the experiences that we have, the places that we go. Differently put, it's really our growth in business or our professional world, as well as our personal world, based on the books that we read, the training that we attend, the experiences that we have, and the classes that we teach.
Yeah.
So people approach this different ways, right? One way to do it is for, we're obviously today in the month of March, wrapping up March, going into April. So some people would write this down and they would say that they want to each month identify training to take, an experience to have, a book or a couple books to read, and something that they want to teach. Because we know that, and Gary Keller teaches us that the greatest way that we can learn is when we teach something, right? You think you got to prepare the material, you have to review the material. You probably have nerves, so you review it multiple times, and then you teach it, and you have ahas and introspection while you're sharing about the material that helps you grow. So the idea of a growth plan is, right, what are the areas that I intend to grow? Where do I purposely want to get better in 2022, for example? And each month, what are the books I'm going to read? What are the classes I'm going to take? What am I going to attend in order to do that? Really simple. There's also, if that's too abstract, here's another way to approach it. Another way to approach it is to, on the side of your page, before you start writing each month what you're going to read and what you're going to do, on the side of the page, start with the areas or topics in which you desire to grow. So each year, this is actually the way that I approach it. It's easier for me to think through it that way. So each year I pick topics that I want to grow in. So I always study psychology. I always study coaching. I always study sales, right, and communication. I always study technology, at least recently. Over the past several years, starting in 2020, I started studying topics of diversity, equity, inclusion, social equity, right, in coaching and leading and growth. I always study leadership. So there's an example of some categories that I study. Claire, can you think of anything that on an annual basis you're purposefully studying or growing in?
For me, it's mindset for sure, because it's one of the things that I absolutely know. If you've got a positive mindset, it just feels like, I don't know, everything else that I do seems to work out. So I do tend to read a lot of books around mindset and keeping myself positive as well.
So we'll do a quick exercise. I love mindset, by the way. That's a really good one. So we'll do a quick exercise, and I'll just give you kind of an example of what you might study, and then an example of what a book would look like. And then you would just literally decide, okay, what month am I going to read that? So let's say that you wanted to study mindset, or even one of my categories was psychology, right? This book just came out. It's called Chatter by Ethan Kross, right? And it's a great book on literally the voice in our head, why it matters, and how to harness it. Or at least that's what it says on the front. Now, the good news is I've read it. It is a good book. What I would say with this one is make sure you read the whole thing, because the beginning is very intense, and you want to make sure you go through it. Okay. So if you were thinking, how do I lead at a higher level through models or systems, right? You might study a book or read a book like Radical Candor by Kim Scott, right? And this is a great book on leadership. Kim Scott actually worked in-house with Google, worked in-house with Apple as a coach. And these are the models or the systems that she used to be able to coach executives there. Now, let's say that you were thinking about how do I get into a positive mindset, and how do I commit to success principles? You might read a book like Chop Wood, Carry Water by Joshua Medcalf. And what's cool about books like these, right? Or if you wanted to learn how to grow your business through referrals and the value that you give and how you serve others, you might read something like The Go-Giver by Bob Burg. These two books are really cool because they're what we would consider business parables or fables. So if you're one of those people where you go, I don't really like that heavy business stuff, it's okay. There's a whole genre of books that you can learn business ideas, concepts, or competencies through fables or stories. These are two of those in that genre. Let's say that you really wanted to get into the mindset of executing, competing, winning at a high level, and assuring that you were doing everything it took to be able to beat out the competition and to grow personally to assure that you could grow your business. You might read a book like Winning by Tim Grover. Tim Grover was actually this guy's personal trainer. That's Michael Jordan, right? I haven't hung the other poster yet that goes right there. It's about to be hung this week, which is Kobe Bryant. He was also his trainer too, right? Wow. Let's say you wanted to learn how to communicate numbers in a way that other people can understand them. You might read a book like Making Numbers Count by Chip Heath, right? And again, would you read all these at the same time? No, they'd be spread out over your year, right, of the books that you want to read. You probably would listen to some Audible, and you could speed them up, and then you could get the hard copy, and that's what you could do. Now, one of my favorite books this year, we've really loved, we've taught a lot of clients, right? Let's say that you beat yourself up. You're challenging on yourself. You're one of those people that's constantly focused on the future goal instead of the past success that you had, which actually puts you in stress and anxiety instead of in gratitude. And you want to move more towards that and study how you can be in that positive, powerful mindset to be able to do that. A great book by Dan Sullivan is called The Gap and the Gain. The Gap and the Gain. And this book, really for a lot of people, has been a game changer. It's a great mental reset to be able to focus on how far we've come instead of necessarily where we desire to go, or focusing on that future goal, which creates stress and anxiety inside of us, right? Okay. So these are, just a few of the types of books that we could be reading or listening to throughout the year as we create that purposeful and intentional growth plan. And Claire, I appreciate you letting me go through it this way, because again, in a coaching conversation or dialogue, it's much more me asking questions, taking notes, and identifying something that we could use to help you break through, move forward, or get past something or overcome something, and teaching you how to think, or making sure to partner with you to get what you want. And yet today we just covered a simple plan that anybody listening could create based on what they desire to read, the classes they take, the experience they want to have, or the studies that they areas they want to study in order to purposefully and intentionally grow in 2022. So I don't know. What do you think?
It's crazy that literally every time I speak to you, I've just written down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 new books, and yet every time I speak to you, I must write down 3 or 4. So how many books have you read? I mean, it's a silly question to say in your lifetime, but how many do you read a year?
Anywhere between 100 and 150 a year, and the way that happens is Audible changed the opportunity for everyone to take in information, right? And to be able to disseminate that information into something they could use. It changed our growth plan. So for many people, they might write down 1 or 2 books that they would read. And that's what I used to do, right? On a monthly basis. At the present time, I listen to the Audible sped up, right? At 2 times or 2.5 times. And that's a habit. It's like running on the treadmill, right? A quick fact about your brain can process language 4 times faster than you can speak. So one of the things that's really interesting is people go, I could never listen that fast. And the funny thing is almost everyone starts to listen at a faster speed, because what they begin to recognize is your brain is a powerful tool. Actually, it can process way faster than it can put out. Your output will never match the input that you can take inside your brain. So what's really amazing is speeding that up allows me to listen to 2 books a week. So instead of it being 2 a month, it can go to 2 a week. And every time I'm on the treadmill or I go for a run every day, I'm listening to a book. That helps me to serve clients like yourself that are constantly growing around the world. And it also allows me to be able to bring a different perspective or content to people to grow. So if somebody wanted to start, if they started with a book a month, right, they'd be above the average human, not American, not person in the UK, not right person in Europe, the average human, right, in what they were taking in information, learning, and reading on an annual basis. If you got to 2 books a month, you'd be double, right, what the average person would be taking in, or even thought worker would be taking in a year. If you got into speeding things up and listening to maybe 1 a week and you grew into that area, now you're actually compressing your year, right? You're learning more information, right? Which means that you're accelerating your growth over time, if that makes sense.
It makes every sense. And actually, it reminds me of a book that I read recently, which is a 12-week year. So you just spoke about compressing the year. You know, you have a growth plan that you've mentioned, you know, that you want to do this within the next 12 months. Well, you've just given me a way where I can do it in the next 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, 2 simple ideas that we teach in coaching, right? If you want to accomplish something bigger in a shorter period of time, you can actually ask yourself a much larger question. Simply put, right, the reason why people achieve a higher net worth, whether, you know, the billionaires or those things, is they're typically asking themselves a bigger question. It's been said by many billionaires who have been quoted saying that the difference between the average individual and a billionaire is the average person says, how do I do something in 10 years? A billionaire says, how do I do something in 10 years? And what would it take for me to accomplish it in the next 6 months? So they're asking themselves a bigger question. Or you can also hear in that question the second concept, which is compressing time. How do I do something larger and yet give myself a shorter period of time to accomplish it? 2 things that allow our brain to be able to think bigger and start to conceptualize bigger ideas and move towards it, as well as that deadline principle. Like when you go on vacation, you get everything done. You can create artificial deadlines in your life and say, I want to accomplish this big thing in this period of time. It creates focus, energy. And either way, you're using more of your brain to be able to focus in and create attention on what you desire to accomplish. So those are, hopefully we've covered some different things in this conversation today that people would realize would come out in coaching, or that we could ask questions about or teach. And obviously we're looking to give a short presentation on what experiences could happen in a coaching call and how those would be specifically applied to us as an individual.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got to say, it's been really lovely listening to you, because actually usually you'll plant a question there and it's me doing a lot of the talking so that you can discover how you can help me best in that, you know, 30 minutes that we've got together. So it was actually really lovely sitting and listening to you. And as usual, I've taken gold from it, because although I have a growth plan and I read every single day, and I've been committed to that for a long time now, speeding it up 2.5 times, listening to an audiobook at the same time, that's a new one for me. I hadn't even considered doing that. So I will absolutely be implementing that straight away. So thank you very much. More golden nuggets from Matt.
Sure. Well, I hope that everybody got something from this conversation today. And remember, you can listen to audio. You can listen to books if you choose to, in a concept that we call net time, no extra time needed. And when is that? It's when you're grocery shopping. It's when you're at the gym, right? It's when you're driving in your car, right? They call it, car university or driving university, right? So we have these commute times as well. It could be when you're on the train, right? Where you could make a conscious decision to use as an education or a growth period instead of necessarily a music period or not eliciting anything. It's all good. It's personal choice. Yet those people that make that conscious decision are able to learn a lot more throughout the year, because they're using that downtime or time where they have the ability to listen or take in information to learn. So that may be something that people listening say, okay, I've got a commute of 30 minutes, or I'm on the train into London every day for an hour, right? What could I be doing at that time? You think about it, over the course of the year, you could probably listen to like 50 books. Right. And if you were really intentional on those subjects, where would you be? Where would your thinking be? Right. Our business and our world, our life grows to the extent that we do. So if you were 50 books farther along in knowledge, what would happen in your life? Be pretty powerful.
Exactly. And you get one life, so don't waste it. Hey,
absolutely.
Look, honestly, thank you so much for your time today, Matt. I really appreciate you. And I'll catch up with you again next week.
Thanks, Claire, for the opportunity.
No problem. See you later.